one of the honorary for woman who means business and a woman to watch by the Houston Business Journal 2019, and she had been in the higher education career, integrating the marketing, communication, media, and business development, behavior change, and educational leadership in curriculum. She currently serves as the Executive Dean of the Bachelor Program and Partnership at the Lone Star College. She is the lead faculty at the Lone Star College before she stepped into the Executive Dean position and served as the Assistant Dean and the Director of the MBA program at the University of Houston Downtown. And she spearheaded the growth of the downtown MBA program from the smallest to the largest in Texas. Before that, Dr. Sherif served as the commercial specialist with the U.S. Department of Commerce, where she was a professional analyst and advisor for the principal commercial officer and the U.S. ambassador, and planning and administering programs to facilitate the marketing of U.S. goods and services for 15 countries. She also assists the U.S. firm by developing marketing strategies, researching and writing marketing reports, planning and executive trade events. And she has been providing lots of help and services support to various departments, in particular those in the Asian Chamber of Commerce, East End Chamber of Commerce, Leadership Houston, Katy Rotary Club, Chai Honorary Society, Alpha Chi, the National Honor Society, and the National United Nations Association of Houston. So help me welcome Dr. Sherif. She is going to talk to us and share with us about community college and career, the accessibility, inclusion, and opportunity. Over to you, Dr. Sherif. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. And sorry to bore you all with this. I was asked for a bio and I didn't realize it would be all that long. So I do apologize. And thank you very much for having me today. And before I start, I really want to compliment this chamber because I sit on the board of 2 other chambers of commerce. And I love those chambers. Those are like my home chambers. But when the first went to Sci-Fair, I can't remember which event was the first one, but it was the Business Expo, I'm sure. And so I went back and I said, this is the most active chamber I've ever seen or ever been part of or have ever attended an event like that. It's amazing. And I've been teasing all the other chambers, by the way. I've been telling them, oh, you know what? They've had this in-person expo when everyone else was going virtual. So, so really kudos for everything you've been doing. And on a personal level and on a professional level, your events have really helped our program fly. So the last time we came to your event, we recruited like probably 10 students or more. So thank you very much. And thank you for having me today. So, so I think the topic for today touches all of us. And I mean, we all probably are like, we have experienced or witnessed a piece of that. So I really wanted to discuss subtle discrimination in higher education and how community colleges help promote access, inclusion, and opportunity. So this is, well, you already had enough intro, so I'm gonna skip that, but it's just I would like to highlight the personal piece, which is, I studied in 3 countries. I studied in Egypt, the UK, and the USA, and I worked in 15 countries. And I am married with 3 kids. So I was kind of socially disadvantaged because of the work-life balance I was trying to juggle. And so that ties in the discussion of today as well. So before I start, I wanted to stir up the discussion just a little bit, or provide food for thought by asking those conceptual questions. So let me ask you this, and please unmute yourself and let's discuss it. And by the end of the presentation, we'll probably find the best answers for these conceptual questions, but also let's discuss it. So in education, do you think education is something that can be given to people equally or unequally, like when you're giving people pieces of a cake, or not? And the second question is education synonymous to becoming educated? So is the noun the same as the verb in a way or another? And the last question is, are there policies that cater for justice and fairness in education? And if so, why are there still large socioeconomic gaps? So just unmute yourselves and tell me what you think, please.
Hi, I'm happy to take on the first one. Is education something that can be given equally? I strongly believe that no, you cannot teach everyone the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone does learn in different ways, different levels, and they appreciate or actually find ways to implement what they learn based on how it is delivered to them. So I don't believe that it can be given equally.
Thank you, Dr. Decour. Thank you so much. Anyone wants to take a stab at any of the questions?
Let me jump in. My name is Jin Chong here. Education is supposedly to be meant for everybody equally. It all depending on whether anybody can pick it up or not, depending on the background, the economic support and everything else. The mechanism is important. And also, apart from that, whether he or she has got accessibility to the resources. That's my take.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Kevin, and I was thinking of the second question. And I think of it more in terms of education being the formal education system, the system set up by government and the private sector that we formally go through. But becoming educated, I think, is what we all aspire to be. And that's a more holistic idea where we're thinking about the informal education system, we're thinking about extracurriculars, we're thinking about all of the life experiences that we have that contribute to becoming the person that we want to be and who we believe we are. So that's how I think of the two. And I think they're very different.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in on that second question as well. I do not think that education is synonymous with educated. And I do think that educated is a lifelong process. It's not, I don't think you ever arrive at educated. I think that that's something you have to be continuously aspiring to. And it also really does have to do with what you do with that education. Do you just take the class in order to get an A? Or do you actually try to internalize it and make it a part of you so that you are better?
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would, hi, this is Dr. Sonal. I wanted to touch base with the first question, is education something that can be given? I think of education being like oxygen. It's there everywhere. It's just depending upon the person's capability to how they take it in. Some people can take it in easily. Some people need ventilators. So it's just like that, I feel.
Absolutely. No one wants to take a stab at the third one? That's it? No more?
I'll try the third one. I don't feel there are sufficiently good policies around justice and fairness in education. And I think only now I'm really beginning to see more mainstream conversations about what this means, how do we tackle it as in an education system, do you measure this? Is there a way to measure it?
Absolutely.
And I think we're only beginning to accept that there are gaps now between large socioeconomic gaps, and we're only now beginning to think about how to address it. I think it's not just in this country. I think that's only worldwide we're beginning to have this conversation.
Absolutely. And to the third question, I actually have an example. And the reason why I highlighted that I'm married with 3 kids when I was introducing myself versus all of the other bullets is that third question, because it's very hard to measure how fair or how just the educational system is. So in my case, I was asked to obtain my MBA like halfway through my career life, and my supervisors told me that if I don't get an MBA, there won't be a good chance for me to get to the next promotion or rise up to the next level, which they thought I could do well. They just needed that degree. So when I was calling to schools, every school was so proud to say that, oh, this is a 1-year MBA, this is a 1.5 year MBA. It was mostly the focus on how like short of a window when you can finish and complete your degree. And my response to them was, no, I want the longest MBA because I'm juggling too many things at the same time, 2 jobs, 3 kids. And so it's just hard. So until I found a school that said, well, okay, it's a 1-year MBA, but you can finish anytime as long as you finish within 5 years. I was like, perfect, that's the one I want. And then because I didn't have any time and I was working internationally, so I was flying twice a month for almost 32 hours. I was like, okay, probably that's the only time I can save to study. And so I was mostly studying on a plane. So after 5 years, when I finished my MBA, which I could have finished in 1 year and gotten to that next promotion, if you calculate the loss, because I could have just risen to that position once I complete my degree, which I couldn't do. So it took me 5 years to get there, while my other colleagues finished and went directly into the next level. And they were making double as much as I was doing. And I was stuck on a plane with a book, studying for 16 hours. And when people asked me when I finished, how did you do this? I was like, I got my MBA on a plane. So it's not a school that exists on a plane. It's just the student is in a plane. So it's just so hard. Is this fair? Well, maybe not, or maybe yes. I don't know. Because it's just not, it's gray. It's one of those gray areas. You can't tell. Is there a policy that caters to protect like people with role conflict probably, or work-life, like harsh work-life balance, to make sure that they can reach to their next goal in education? Well, maybe not. So it's a hard question to ask, I have to say. But then to the first question, I was researching because I really wanted to know what's the answer. And some researchers were just talking about the concept of uptake. So this is why we always refer to education as teaching and learning, because you can teach all day, but no one is learning anything. It's just because you're not doing the right way, or people are not ready for whatever that you're giving them. They can't absorb it, they can't receive it. So that concept of uptake that researchers were talking about, they gave examples about breakfast, for example. If a student did not have enough breakfast that morning because they don't have enough food at home, that student, you can talk to that student all day, but that student will not be engaged, will be sleepy, will not be active, and the uptake will not be there. So the teaching will exist, but the learning will not. And so another example from my own experience, after Harvey, after the first storm in 2020, and this storm, last week's storm, a lot of people lost their laptops. And although Lone Star and back then during Harvey, I was with UHD, both schools had programs for loaner laptops. Students didn't know about that. And so the people who got their laptops damaged, they went ahead and they dropped out of school. And once that happens, it's very hard to track those people down and put them back on track, because it's just life goes on, life goes by, and school is just, is not a goal anymore. So that's to the first question. And for the second question, I was also researching the right answer, and I found that when you get educated, that's actually the rewards associated with climbing the educational ladder. So in my case, becoming educated was when I got that MBA after 5 years, versus people who got it in 1 year and went right to that position that they always wanted. I was way behind everyone just because of my socioeconomic status as a mother with kids, with multiple jobs and so on. So they are definitely not synonymous. And well, those questions will stay as rhetorical questions forever, because I think people will continue to research them until better answers are found, I guess. So I also wanted to talk to you about bridges and barriers in higher education. So community colleges are always there, and they are always a great option if people want to start a smaller class, not spend all that much money, and continue through 2+2, end up in a university, but start in a community college. Community colleges also have a long-standing tradition to raise up a new generation, specifically for the workforce. So because they are community colleges and they serve the community, they really want to address gaps in the workforce and raise up that generation of work-ready adults who can graduate and take that job that is really needed in the community. So most community colleges are designed specifically for profession, for access, inclusion, and opportunity, for those who cannot afford to go to a 4-year university. And of course, community colleges help professionals break the metaphoric glass ceiling and escape the invisible degree barrier that prevents people from rising to senior positions. Well, the problem is you go to community college and you get your associates, and you get a job and all, and then you start a family, you have kids, and then you decide that you need that promotion to get to the next level and increase your earning potential, right? And then, like I did, you go talk to your supervisors and they tell you, we need that degree, you need a bachelor's to get to the next position. And so, as amazing as community colleges are, previously they were not catering for people seeking a bachelor degree. So because when we were thinking of the third question we discussed earlier, we were talking about policies in place that guarantee fairness and equality in higher education. I came across article number 1 in the Convention Against Discrimination, and it notes that the term discrimination includes distinction, exclusion, limitation, or preference when it's being based on race, on color, on sex, on language, on religion, or even political views, and or economic condition, or like your birthplace. And it's anything that has an effect of nullifying or impairing equality of treatment in an educational context. So anything that deprives a person from proper access to education at any level, or anything that limits a person's ability to get high quality education, or anything that inflicts on a person or a group of people conditions that are not compatible with the dignity of human beings. So there are policies in place, but we still are not 100% at fairness. So historian Matthew Johnson observed 4-year universities and said that they have been trying very hard to make reforms by offering grants, scholarships, everything possible, or even waiving standardized tests for many universities. But inequality and exploitation are still there. We still see that. And we still see that the lowest pass rates are always among the financially disadvantaged groups. So one example is one of my colleagues, when we graduated, we wanted to sit for like a test. And it's always better if you take the test right after you graduate, because the information, the knowledge is still fresh and you still remember it. My friend and my colleague, by the time she saved up to sit for the test, she didn't pass it because the test was $650, and by the time she saved up the $650, she sat for the test and she has forgotten everything. So it's always that balance between, can I afford it? And, you know, like that's my need. So yes, I need it and I need it now, but when can I afford it? And the same thing for the SAT or ACT exams. Only the students who can afford the expensive, commercially available test prep courses and counseling and those SAT and ACT centers that give them the good preparation for the test, those are the ones who score the higher grades on the test. So it's really subtle. You can't see it unless you think about it. But it's also a very damaging form of discrimination, because you cannot attain the opportunities you see right in front of you because of the cost of attending a four-year university, or because of the cost of a test, or because of the cost of a laptop, or even cost of food that you need to just get your brain to work properly, and then you can obtain that information in the right way. So like I said, we have a handful of institutions who replace loans with grants. They have improved their financial aid packages, and they committed themselves to help the students financially, but you still have that need blind admissions and students graduating with huge loans. That's still a thing. So I don't know if everyone knows, but not recently, like since the turn of the century, so 1991, I believe, a lot of community colleges, as part of their commitment to helping their communities and help the more disadvantaged minority groups, community colleges started offering bachelor degrees. And I'm not only talking about Lone Star because, and I'm an employee at Lone Star, but I'm talking about community colleges in general. That's an amazing thing. Every time we hear a student telling their story, it's so touching that everyone, faculty, myself, and everyone else hearing their story, we all tear up. So because most of those students were always looking forward to get their bachelor, to move up and rise up to that supervisor level position, they just couldn't afford it, and they didn't want to think about the costs associated with it. Once they see it available at community college level, they are really encouraged, and they are not only encouraged themselves, but it's also all their stories come with, like, I promised my mom to do this, I promised my mom to graduate with my bachelor, or I promised my daughter. We have a bunch of students who are graduating on the same date with their kids. So one person is graduating from the Bachelor in Nursing program that we have at Lone Star with his daughter. So they're graduating at the same time. So very touching stories, very inspirational stories. But going back to the main point, so most of a lot of the community colleges in this day and time committed themselves to offer bachelor degrees, which is great because they offer it at the same cost of the associate's degree. So those community colleges are really not making any profits because they have to hire faculty with a PhD. So they pay them more and they offer the class or they offer the credits at the same price they offer the associates. So the net cash flow is always negative, but they do it to help the community, which I think is great. So we have a total of 121 community colleges who offer bachelor degrees. So that's 13% of the public two-year community colleges in the nation. And these are in almost 23 states. So it's not, unfortunately, it's not everywhere yet, but hopefully It's expected to be in all states by 2030. So community colleges are really filling that need for quality and price, because it's not only price that is a factor or a parameter on the table, but also the quality of education. Because let me give you an example. I don't know if you remember, but ITT of Houston was a place where people applied, they got admitted, they studied for several years, and by the time they graduated, ITT lost its accreditation. So you can imagine that you're always wanting to get that degree, and by the time you're about to graduate, you can't graduate because the educational institution lost its accreditation. How sad is that? So community colleges are really committed to both quality of education and the price point. So they don't want people to relapse into unemployment just because they only could afford that much and they went to the wrong educational institution and got the wrong degree, so they couldn't, when they were thinking they are making an advancement or a progress, they were actually digressive, not progressive. So community colleges make sure to respond to that increased need and for workforce jobs, and also respond to the need for increased access to higher education. When, I mean, now almost 80% of employers would want that bachelor degree on the resume before they start looking at the candidate for as a potential applicant. And then community colleges also want to respond to economic pressures facing the students in communities when people are struggling to feed their families and go to work, and they don't want to spend thousands of dollars to obtain their bachelor degrees. So these are the states and the years when community colleges in these states started offering bachelor degrees. So you see that Utah is one of the first ones, in Vermont. So this is about Lone Star's experience. So when we were trying to help Houston community, and we saw that almost 300,000 people were constantly logging on our website and asking if Lone Star will ever offer a bachelor degree. That's a huge population. That's a huge need. So, so of all the possible years we could have done this, we launched 3 bachelor degrees in 2020. So the COVID year, as I call it. It was super hard to do this during a global pandemic, but we decided that if we committed ourselves to do this to help the community, then we might as well do it as fast as we can and not wait, because it wasn't really something that we could foresee going away. Like, we didn't know when the pandemic will go away. So it's just not possible to plan ahead. If we will not launch it in 2020, when else will we launch it? So we went ahead and did it. So we launched 3 bachelor programs, one as an applied degree in cybersecurity. So for people who got any applied work credit, any applied credits to just find a place in the workforce and be employed, to be, like I said, to be able to provide for their families, but later on discover that they really need that bachelor degree. So we're not competing with universities in any way. We're just capturing those people with workforce credits that mostly no one else will accept, because those are catering for the workforce and they are not intended to be credits to be transferred into another educational institution where people can earn another degree using these. So we are only accepting people with applied degrees. So people in the energy manufacturing trades, for example, that's HVAC, welders. So everyone in the workforce who really entered the workforce to increase their earning potential and get fast access to a job, and then later on discover that, you know what, social mobility is not happening without that bachelor degree. And so we also have the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, which we launched because we just realized that the larger hospitals in Houston, they recently moved to a new policy where they're only hiring BSNs, so nurses with a bachelor degree, instead of RNs. So with that in mind, every RN nurse in Houston will struggle to find that next position in one of the larger healthcare facilities in Houston, and they will have to look for those little opportunities in the smaller clinics. So again, we did that to address subtle discrimination in the workforce. And so these are things that we found that could help students who are struggling and prevent them from dropping out. So we do counseling. We do it in a more of a push rather than pull strategy. So we don't only ask students to see counselors if they need, but we also bring the counselors in class occasionally, every time, like before the finals and before the papers, to help students with their psychological motivation and staying on track. We also have loaner laptops, not only during storms and things, but also throughout the year. So if students are struggling with technology, if they don't have internet, all of these things we help them with. We offer the credits at the same cost of the associate's credits. We design them to be evening classes so people don't have to quit their job or study on a plane like I did. And we have it once a week so they don't have to commute twice a week or 3 times a week. We also provide career counseling, same way, like we don't send them to see a career counselor, but we bring the career counselor to class to share open positions with them to help the students at least have hope. Like some of them, they are waiting to graduate with a bachelor degree to move to the next job. They don't want to move now, but at least that keeps them knowledgeable about the trends and at least know where could their salary go after they graduate when they meet with career counselors. They also help them with resume writing, mock interviews, and everything else. So the other thing that we do is we bring industry speakers to class. So it's more like, so classes are 3 hours, so it's more like a 3-hour interview when we have an industry speaker in class who talks to those students. So 2 or 3 students in several classes got hired when the industry speaker came to class just because they asked the right questions or they were properly engaged, and that person ended up hiring them in the company. We also use open resources rather than textbooks, so people don't have to buy an expensive textbook. Internships are offered during the capstone class, so we're kind of forcing them to indulge into knowing what opportunities are there and make that decision about rising up, moving up in the career ladder. So even if you're happy with your job, no, there's better opportunities out there, just be on the lookout. So we refer to the Bachelor in Cybersecurity as the BAT, Bachelor of Applied Technology, and the other one as the BAS, Bachelor of Applied Science in Energy, Manufacturing, and Trades Management, and those are completed in 2 years. So if you're, like I said, if you're HVAC, welder, but you're struggling to be a shift supervisor or anything like that, and you really need that raise, that extra money for your family, you just join those programs for 2 years, you graduate with a bachelor, and here you are. You're ready for the next promotion or to switch lanes or move to a different industry or a different job if you choose to. And so, like I said, the RN to BSN is to address that need in Houston where RNs are still needed, but they are not in such a high demand. So it's mostly BSNs who are more hireable now. So we're helping all of those RN nurses to get their BSN degree. And so the last thing that we made sure to do is make sure that we're serving the minority groups. So this is Lone Star population, and this is the bachelor programs population. And our program is more diverse. Our students are older. They are the average age of 35. So that tells you that those are the people who really are hitting that metaphoric glass ceiling. So they are halfway through their career life and they don't know what to do without a bachelor. So we started with 43, 53, 25 students. We're now at double that number. So we almost had 100 students for our first cohort. Now we have 245. And well, the application number tells you how much this is needed. So I hope more community colleges start doing this, because we have 820 people applying and we only could accept 25. So that tells you about the dire need for programs like this for